You're watching Next Pitch, the student athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Hi, my name is Anthony Leveritz. I am host of the Next Pitch podcast, and today I am joined by a very special guest, special in a lot of ways, but especially he's my friend. I've known Larry Melton, who will be joining us for a long time now. He is currently an executive in the mortgage world, but also has a very deep background in athletics. Multi-sport athlete as a kid growing up, got to play college baseball at the University of Portland, and then was a professional baseball player all the way up through AAA. And we're just going to have a conversation about that, but also want to talk to Larry, who's a very successful businessman, about how all the lessons he learned from athletics have helped him as he's grown in the business world. Super happy to have Larry joining us today. I just introduced you very well, I might say. Thank you, first of all, for joining us. I'm thrilled to have you here, and again, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm super happy to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning. Okay, so grew up in a small town in Oregon. Yes. Talk a little bit about that experience of being in a little community, getting involved in athletics. Kind of what was your first introduction to sports, and how do you remember that?
You know, I think it all came from my dad, who was not necessarily an athlete. He was an athletic guy in that he had that build, but he was a farm kid. He wasn't out playing sports. But I had an older brother. And as a kid, I just remember we had about every stick and ball available at the sporting goods store. And that's kind of all we did. I mean, you know, there was obviously times were different. There wasn't all the screen time that we have now, or even the channels to watch now. So my mom's favorite saying, I think, was go outside. And my brother and I would just go outside. And whether it was football, basketball, baseball, making up games, that was kind of how we got introduced to sports. It just was part of kind of our daily get out of the house, go do something activity. So, and I took to baseball, obviously. So that was a big part of what I always wanted to go.
But you played multiple sports growing up, right?
Yeah.
What all did you play, and when did you? I know you look a lot younger than I am, but you're one generation probably above me.
Yeah.
We won't say your age because no one would believe us anyway. But what is the how many sports did you play? When did you get involved? When did that begin for you?
Well, organized sports started when I was about 8, and that's when baseball started for me. And so that was the first one. Funny enough, my dad was a big bowler. He was a league bowler. And so as kids, we bowled a lot just for fun. And then there's more stories to that as I got a little older. Interestingly enough, I didn't play a lot of basketball. My dad wasn't a basketball player. I didn't play any organized basketball until I was a 9th grader. But baseball was really the focus. Baseball, we bowled. I played flag football in 6th grade because that's what was available. And I didn't.
It's making a huge comeback, by the way.
Well,
flag football is making a like.
Is it really?
Oh, it's now a women's sport. I think 37 states now have flag football back in the United States for high school girls.
Oh, well, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I really enjoyed it. But prior to that, I had played for at the time we were living in northern Washington, Bellingham, Washington, and I signed up to play for the boys club, which was kind of like, I think other folks would call it Pop Warner or something like that. I was 9. I don't know why my dad did this. He lied about my age because it was for 10, 11, and 12-year-olds, and I was 9. And the one thing I could do was throw a football.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm the quarterback as a 9-year-old getting pounded by 12-year-olds that were twice my size, and I kind of lost my interest in football at that time. It just wasn't my thing, I guess, and maybe I just got beat up too bad by the older kids. But so I didn't play a lot of football, and I didn't play football through high school. But again, man, we did everything else. My brother and I, we were both ping pong players, and our high school had a ping pong tournament every year. He won it when he was a senior. I won it when I was a senior, because that's, again, something he and I just did a ton of when we were kids. and played tennis recreationally, loved that. So yeah, again, we just kind of did everything, a little bit of everything. And then obviously you start to maybe hone in on one sport. But for us, when we were kids, we were just always outside playing something.
It's something we've talked a lot about on this show, is just how important. I think he's just made two very important points. One, you had a somewhat bad experience at a young age with the sport, right? Which took you away from it. And that can come from also bad coaching, doing something too early, doing it for too long, specializing in it. That making sure that those experiences for kids are positive ones is critical. And then doing a whole bunch of sports, right? Like that, cross training your body, your brain, doing new things, really important. So you get into high school, pretty good athlete, have this cross section of skill sets from ping pong and bowling and tennis and games that you made. Did you ever play hand-bat ball? We played hand-bat ball, and that's what we called it.
No.
In the living room with those dice that hung from your car. You want to throw a slider. You want to make something move. Get those dice that hang from those old cars and throw that.
I can see that happening. My brother and I played a lot of ping pong baseball.
Oh yeah,
and you can make a ping pong ball move pretty well too. So maybe similar. It's we could translate those two.
We also used socks and rolled up socks and did it. We did it all. But anyway, you get into high school, and you played basketball and baseball in high school. When did you know that baseball is going to be my sport?
Well, honestly, it was probably clear back when I was 11 or 12. Honestly, I just had this propensity for it. And here's the other part. I was lucky. We had obviously the physical part, but I just loved it. All I ever wanted to do was go outside and throw a baseball, hit a baseball. If we had 2 guys, we'd play catch. If we had 3, we'd play pickle, we called it, or hot box. If we had 4, we might go play workup, as we called it. When I was about 11, we lived back east for a year. That's another story, but I was on a team that was very good. And that's when really baseball started to become something I think I was excelling at, or at least showing some skills at. And then we moved back to the Dalles when I was 12, and I had to try out. This was kind of funny. When my brother and we were living back east, we asked my dad, "Hey Dad, can we grow our hair long?" And he was like, "Yes, of course." And here's a country kid, right? He was a country kid, clean cut. My brother and I came to him, "Can we grow our hair long?" And he says, "Yes. 2 rules. 1, you have to keep it out of your eyes and keep it washed and combed." Great. I don't think he knew what he let us do, because by the time I moved back to the Dalles, again, and I'm a 12-year-old kid, I had hair halfway down my back.
Really?
Yeah.
You have pictures of that? Because I really want to see that.
I probably do somewhere. I should. So here's the funny story about that. I come back to the Dalles. I don't have a team to play on, and it's Little League, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. Well, I'm 12, and I'm playing pretty good level baseball as a 12-year-old, but I had to still try out to be put on a team. So here comes this kid that nobody knows, hair halfway down their back, trying out with a bunch of 10-year-olds. And the comments were, "Wow, that girl is really good." So I got picked first, in the draft, so to speak. And that's when I, again, moved to the Dalles, where then I spent the rest of my growing up years, as I would call them. And again, continued to kind of focus on and excel in the baseball world.
There's a famous story about hair from that time frame, where Bill Walton, who obviously we just lost here recently, but fascinating human being, right? And he shows up for his sophomore year unshaven and his hair long. And Coach Wooden tells him to leave the facility until he gets his hair cut and his and his face shaved. And Bill tells him, "Well, Coach, you've told us to stand up for something, and I really believe strongly that I should have my hair long and my face not shaved." And Coach Wooden looks at him and says, "You're right, Bill. I really do think you should stand up for that. The team is really going to miss you." And Bill went in and shaved his head, got his face shaved, and the rest was history. But that just a different generation of that hair. And now it's not even, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want to do. But that was a big deal in those days.
Yeah. Well, now you can do whatever you want unless you play for the Yankees.
That's right.
Rules. Well, I had a similar experience, because at the end of that season, I made the All-Star team, and then it's different coaches are coaching the All-Star team. And there was a gentleman Mr. Ignowski, and he was older at the time. So he told me, Larry, you've got two choices. You can cut your hair or wear it in a ponytail. So I'm like, okay. So I go home, tell my mom, hey, I got to either cut my hair, put it in a ponytail. And she's like, what do you want to do? I go, I just put it in a ponytail. I go to practice the next day with my hair in a ponytail. And I'm telling you, that did not sit right with me. So I went home that night and I told my mom, cut it off. And she chopped it off.
Been clean shaven ever since.
That was it. Yeah. No more long hair.
So you get into high school. Obviously, you're a good baseball player. What was the recruiting process like? And what year was this that you would have been? What were the 4 years you were in high school? What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 1981. So,
okay.
And we had at that time a 3-year high school. So in ninth grade, I was still at the junior high. There was no opportunity to be involved in any high school athletics, the way things were set up at that time. So when I got to high school as a sophomore, no sophomores at that time played varsity. So there was JV and varsity. So we were on JV. My junior year, then played varsity. And here's another sort of weird thing. And this is sort of a message to the folks out there. Maybe I was a horrible hitter, great defender, good pitcher, played outfield positions, and I couldn't hit, and came to find out I couldn't see. And so I got glasses and immediately became a completely different player. And so if anybody listening to this, if you've got kids in athletics or not in athletics, man, I'm such an advocate now of getting eyes checked early so that kids aren't disadvantaged through either academics or sports or just walking down the street. It's crazy how much it changed my life.
Yeah, I actually am going to do a show on that, just sort of the health of kids and some things that happened. And it came from one of my players who was legally blind that we didn't know, not for this podcast today, but I'm going to talk about that and the change that makes, not just in the ability to play your sport better, but in everything that you do.
Yeah.
Being able to see is kind of an important part of life.
It is. And it's not, no pun intended, it's eye-opening. That's horrible.
Oh, that's good.
I remember getting glasses and trying to play sports in glasses, then immediately went to contact lenses, and the ability to see trees and every leaf on a tree. And so you translate that into sports, and all of a sudden the baseball isn't this fuzzy white thing. It's this very defined little white ball. Bowling, again, that we can talk about that if you want. That was a whole nother big part of my life for a long time. But basketball, seeing the net really defined versus just kind of a white blur.
Yeah.
And yeah, so again, a big advocate of all health for kids, but
yeah,
that's one that really impacted me.
So when did the recruiting process start for you?
Recruiting, so for college,
yeah.
For
so
example?
You end up at University of Portland. How did that happen? Because I know it's so different now, and I think people are fascinated. I think everyone knows the recruiting cycle now, right? There's every single, there's all the different rating boards and the online services that rank kids, and all of the summer baseball, summer basketball, summer football, volley. Like every sport has their recruiting cycle. That wasn't really a thing until the mid to late 90s. So how was your recruiting handled? How did that happen? How'd you end up at Portland?
Yeah, I was not recruited, interestingly enough, but nobody really was back then, especially not when you were a kid playing in a town of 10,000 that's 80 miles from the metro area here. So some of the kids here in the Portland metro area had a lot more visibility, maybe from college coaches or whatever, but obviously there was no video. We weren't sending YouTube links to coaches. Here's kind of how this happened. There was another kid from the Dows, a guy named Ken Daly. Look him up. He played in the major leagues for a long time. He went to the University of Portland and became an All-American and still holds records there to this day. And he was just a little older than me. He was a year older than my brother. So not anyone that I knew at that time, but I knew Ken went to University of Portland, had a good experience, became an All-American, got drafted. So I wrote a letter to the University of Portland and I said, hey, I'm Larry from I don't know what I wrote. I wrote Larry from the Dows. I pitch a little bit.
Dear University of Portland, I love you. I can throw a baseball. Will you love me back?
Yeah. And here's kind of a funny accidental connection there. The Dows has different weather than Portland because it's on the other side of the mountain. So it was not unusual for college teams to come and play in the Dows when it was raining here. They would just drive up there and use our field. And I was there one day in the bullpen, which was right behind the visitors' dugout. And I was just working out. I was just pitching. And all of a sudden, there's some guys in that dugout that are kind of peeking around the corner watching me. Well, it happened to be the University of Portland was up there playing Concordia or something. And then all of a sudden, this really tall guy comes out and he's staring at me. I mean, 6'7", 6'8" guy. And he's just kind of watching me. And then he comes over and goes, "Hey, where are you going to school next year?" And I said, "Well, back to high school because I'm only a junior." And he was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what's your name?" And well, it turns out that was my college coach then. I wrote that letter. He remembered that.
That's fascinating.
So we got connected. They offered me a little money to come there, not NIL money. Let's be very clear. Just, some scholarship money. And I literally, other than one phone call from another guy that I'd gone to high school with who was at Oregon State University and played baseball there, he called me one day randomly, "Hey, Larry, this is, so-and-so. Would you be interested in coming to Oregon State?" And I'm like, no. So went to the University of Portland, spent 4 years there, got drafted twice, and had a good career there, good experience there. I wouldn't necessarily change it for a thing. The only thing that I may have changed or maybe would have done differently would have been gone somewhere that I didn't play in the rain. Nothing against Oregon, love Oregon, but we played.
Does it rain in the Pacific Northwest?
I've heard that occasionally it'll get a little drippy.
Yeah.
And, frankly, I was probably good enough. Had I been able to get the exposure, I probably could have had other choices to go somewhere else south where it was a little sunnier, a little warmer.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. So spent that time at U of P and it was great.
Baseball in the Northwest. So this is, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I think it's what makes what Pat Casey did at Oregon State maybe one of the most amazing thing that's ever happened in all of college sports. To be that dominant in baseball at Oregon State with the weather and not that there's not good players here, but there's not the depth of talent in this state to be winning national championships. For him to do that, I personally believe it's one of the greatest achievements in all of college athletics ever.
I have said the same thing. How he recruits the talent, or how he's not there anymore, but how he recruited the talent he did to come to little Corvallis, Oregon, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and to play in this weather, is amazing. He deserves all the credit.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So let's get back to you and your story. So you get drafted. You were drafted by
I was drafted
twice, right?
Twice. Yeah. So in 1984 was my junior year. I got drafted in the 4th round by the San Diego Padres.
Okay.
And couple things happened. They made an offer to me, which at the time wasn't a ton. And if I remember right, they offered me $15,000 as a signing bonus, or maybe it was 20. I don't honestly remember. And then they were going to, for a lot of kids back then, maybe they still do it, they were going to put another amount of money aside in sort of a trust fund so that if you decided to go back to college, that money could be used for college, but it wasn't money you could just take.
And that was the Padres.
That was the Padres.
Who had just lost in the World Series.
Oh,
in 84.
That's maybe so. I don't know. So the guy that Dave Bartosh was his name, the guy that's trying to sign me. And I told him two things. I said, for one thing, no one in my family, I had not one relative that had ever graduated from college, and I was on pace to graduate. And that was really important to me.
Yeah.
And so, but I told him, I said, hey, maybe he offered me 25,000 and then 15 in that little trust fund. So 40 total. And I told him, I said, I'll tell you what, just make it 40 cash and I'll sign. And by today's standards, he would have pulled it out of his wallet.
Right.
It's like dresser drawer money. But back then that was a lot. So, and they declined. And so I said, okay, that's fine. I'll go back to school. And barring something weird, I knew I'd get the chance the next year. And even at that, even back then, $25,000 or $30,000 wasn't going to set me up for life. So I declined, ended up playing summer ball in Kansas with some guys that were all Americans at the time, and then a lot of pro players after that. But I went back to college the next year, got drafted by the Pirates in the 8th round. I think I signed, $5,000, because then it's like either sign or don't.
Right.
And so they've kind of got you. And so they just say, here's, take it or leave it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because then at that time too, once they drafted you, they had your rights for, I think, 6 years,
Okay.
whether you signed or not.
Wow.
So you couldn't just say, well, I'm not going to sign and I'll go sign with somebody else. You're not a free agent. So I signed for, $5,000 or whatever it was. Started my career. That was in 1985.
So did you play single A first?
Yep. I played, I sort of jumped a league, kind of. So at that time, the Pirates had what they called extended spring.
Kind of what's long A now?
Well, extended spring was really for the young kids, like high school kids that were really developing. And then there was another level. You know what? I'm getting my years mixed up because I played that first year. I played short season A, which is we played a half a season essentially. That's for all the kids that get drafted.
Okay.
The next year, I skipped over what they called low A ball, and I went to high A, and then kind of went on from there. And I sort of moved up every year.
I've seen guys in airports during that spring training time and leaving like Arizona with their backpacks their whole lives on their back, heading to whatever small town they're about to go play single A baseball in. What is that? You're a pro athlete, right?
Oh,
you're a pro athlete.
Big time.
What is that? What is that world? Walk me through being a professional single A baseball player.
It is not glamorous, let me tell you. So my very first year after I got drafted, went to Florida for just a quick little spring training thing. Again, this is just the draft kids because all the other teams have already been playing. So this is in June. We have a few days there, and then they fly us to a town called Watertown, New York. Cute little town, beautiful area, but the baseball field was not as good as my high school field. I mean, it was very rustic, you might say. Old.
Rustic. Like that. That's very nice. That's very Larry Melton of you to say.
Yeah, well, I'll take you there sometime and you'll say, yep, that's rustic. So
you know me better than that. I'll say something else.
Yeah, right. And then, you're there for a day or two. You have like a day of practice, and then you've got to find an apartment or someplace to live. You've got no money, by the way. You've got to find a place to live. You got to, pick a guy that you've met 5 minutes ago to be a roommate for the rest of the summer. And then you go get your uniform. It's very unglamorous, let me tell you. I met a guy the minute I stepped off the van from the airport to the spring training facility where we all met before we went to Watertown. I met a guy named Paige Odell. And we kind of just buddied up, like, we need a friend. Okay, you're it. And so we rented this place. I kid you not, it was across the street from the hospital. It was like a house that had been broken down into multiple, and we had this. I can't even describe it as an apartment. And then we're looking for furniture. We had no furniture, and so one of the sort of booster club people for that team said, "Oh, I can get you guys beds." Like, oh, great. That'd get at least a place to sleep. He brings over 2 mattresses. They were from the hospital across the street, and they might have been out of the morgue. I don't know. We threw them on the floor, and that's where we slept all summer, on these little thin hospital mattresses that were kind of covered in this weird plastic coating. I don't know. That was our life that summer, and it was.
Was it fun, or was it you have to really love baseball, because you're not making any money. You're sleeping on a bed that someone might have just died in 5 minutes ago. Yeah. You're playing on a field that is rustic, as you described. You have to really love baseball or have a belief that you're going to get somewhere to hang in there.
That's the thing. We were all there. Every one of those guys on that team was there because we were on a path, or we were trying to get to the next level. And so I think you put some of that stuff behind you, like, whatever, just a bunch of guys hanging out trying to play baseball. And we played every day. So you have a game every single day. So it's not like you had to sit in your apartment or find other things to do, because you had plenty to do. So yeah, was it fun? Yeah, it was fun playing pro baseball and being with all these guys. And here's the other part, kind of didn't have any other responsibility. I mean, you're 23, 22, 23 years old. And all you've got to do is get up in the morning and get to the baseball field somehow and then play baseball all day. And yeah, we were only making, I think my first contract was $750. No, $650 a month. I don't know. Not very much.
Not a lot.
No. And I kind of fast forward to thinking back on all these days. The thing that people ask me, do you miss baseball? And I'm like, nah, I don't think I really miss baseball anymore, but I still miss those guys.
Yeah.
I miss that camaraderie. I
Yeah.
miss being on the bus and a bunch of guys being idiot 22-year-olds
Yeah.
and just having a good time doing 22-year-old stuff.
How big was the jump of talent wise from playing in, the University of Portland to playing in pro ball? Was it a noticeable difference at that level? When was it that because you got all the way to AAA before you decided to shut it down, right? Like,
yeah.
when was it where you were like, okay, I'm not in college anymore. This is a different animal.
Yeah. I think I noticed that the next year when I went to my first true spring training. So you get there and there's, 150 guys and there's a ton of pitchers. The big league guys are kind of around, but the guys that are truly big league guys, they had another facility. But you start to realize that, yeah, we're all good baseball players. And again, I grew up in this little town. So I was, for a short time, I say this humbly, but honestly, I was like the big fish, but in a little tiny pond.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big deal to be the big fish. Then you get to spring training, you're like, oh, I'm with all the big fish.
Yeah.
All these guys were studs in high school. All of them were great in college, or they wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
I think the difference might have been just some age differences because, again, I had graduated from college. So my first spring training, I was 23 years old. And there are some kids there that are drafted out of high school.
Right.
And a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but we used to call them Latin players, kids from Mexico or Puerto Rico or other places. But a lot of them would come straight out of high school. Some of them were 17 years old. And so there was a big difference just in the age.
Yeah.
But the guys that were college players, played college like I did, you really start to, at that point, figure out that you're going to have to somehow differentiate yourself because they're all good.
One of the things that happens for every athlete, no matter how high level you get to, is that it comes to an end at some point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you make it through this system, you get to AAA, you're right on, you're next to the big leagues, right? You're almost there. What was that decision making process like for you, and how did you go through that to make it okay in your mind, like, this is over, I'm done, I'm not going to play anymore?
Yeah, for me, honestly, it was kind of easy because I was hurt. The entire my last season was 1989, and I went to spring training and my shoulder was not right. And I could still throw okay, but I had pain and it wasn't comfortable. And then I was the only pitcher on that staff, on that AAA staff, that was not on the 40-man roster. So I was truly the low man on the totem pole on that AAA team. And I was hurt. And then they made me a reliever, which I had never done. And so I go from a starter. And when you're a starter in pro ball and you've got this very regimented routine, I mean, every day is laid out, to going to a reliever didn't suit me great.
Yeah.
And I was hurt, and being hurt and trying to perform just not good. And so at the end of that season, midway through that season, I got sent back down to AA. And I'd already been in AA. We'd won a championship in AA. I'd made the all-star team in AA. So I was pretty discouraged. I was like, okay, I've already been here, done this. I'm hurt. The one thing I didn't do was just quit and go home.
Yeah.
I refused to do that. I said, no, I'm going to stay for the season, which I did. But then once that season was over, I really had a choice. Do I go get surgery at now age, 26? I could have had surgery that winter and gone back and tried again the next year. But realistically, I would have had to start back at a lower level now at age 27. And now you're getting pretty old, or at least in my mind, you're like, okay, if you're not getting really close to the big leagues by 27, 28, and there's some great stories of guys who stuck it out and got there in their 30s, but I didn't want to do that. And I've never had the surgery to fix my shoulder. So that was kind of out. And at the time, we don't need to get into this, but I was married to someone else and our marriage was a little rocky and we really wanted to try to make it work. Me traveling around playing pro baseball, making $1,000 a month was not going to make that great. So anyway, I decided at that point just to call it quits. And
before we jump into kind of the lessons that you can take from sports into business, what advice would you give to parents who are raising athletes? Like, what is because it's a different animal, right? It's especially a different animal now with everything that is the wrong with sports, with youth sports, with kids getting involved, especially. What advice would you give parents raising athletes?
Be their biggest fan. Period. End of story. They've got coaches. They've got enough people putting pressure on them. My mom and dad were my biggest fans, and my brother was awesome. And you would have never known on the ride home or the conversations after the game if I had the best game of my life or the worst game of my life. And for me, it just made it really easy to go play the sport without worrying about how that next 2 hours was going to go over the dinner table or whatever. And I think most parents are great. Most parents are so supportive of their kids. But I've been involved now in some private instruction stuff. And I've also seen the other side of that. And I just, man, if I could tell parents one thing, I'm just, just be their fan and support them the best you can. Let the coaches coach, let them beat themselves up when they have a bad game. Kids know they have a bad game.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell them.
Yeah.
Right. And if I could get one message out there, that would be it for the folks.
Well, the science backs that up. Like
really?
Every single survey done with kids says they want to hear from their parents, "I love you and I love watching you play."
Yeah.
They don't want to hear the rest of it. If you can deliver that message to your kids and be that fan for them and love them regardless, not having that love or that excitement attached to a good performance and the opposite of that attached to a bad performance, that creates a much better environment between parent and student athlete.
Yeah. And I would also say, let the kids pick what they want to do. There are so many things that they can do. I have 2 daughters, and I coached my older daughter in softball when she was little. And then we did that for 2 years. And then she came to me one day, she goes, "Dad, do you mind if I don't play softball?" I'm like, "I don't care, honey. Just find something else you want to do." And she did. She found other activities that were not necessarily sports related. She was involved in athletics, but she really found her way in dance and ballet. And so I also feel like parents really push their kids into something, right? And I wish they wouldn't do that as much as I see some parents do it. There are so many things kids can do athletically, academically, artsy. It doesn't really,
they got to find their own path.
Yeah, they do.
It's not your life anymore. It's theirs, right? Like that's, and that's a hard thing for parents to look in the mirror and say to themselves.
Yeah. And then, like I said, I go back to, originally you asked me about, how I got going in athletics, and my dad, like I said, we had every stick and ball. I mean, in the garage, go out there. What do you
just
want?
Play
football, soccer, just grab something and go enjoy and go find what you like to do and pursue that as much as you can.
So you've obviously you played baseball till you were 20, what'd you say, 26, 27?
Yeah. My last year was 89. So I would have been late 26-ish.
So most of your life you haven't been playing baseball. You've been in the business world. But obviously athletics is a big part of who you were, who you are, what developed you and built you into the person that you became. What are some of those key things as you become very successful in the business world? What are some of those key things that you've taken from all of those experiences that translate to your success in the business world?
Man, this is going to sound so cliche, and I think everybody would say this, but honestly, athletics, I think, teaches us all how to fail. And in athletics, you can fail, and then you got 2 choices. Well, I can quit and not do it anymore, or I can come back the next day and just try to do better. And if anybody out there that's played athletics at any level for any length of time has had great days and really bad days.
Yeah.
And I think if you can manage both the good and the bad, and I love the saying, don't get too used to reading your own sports clippings, right?
Yeah.
Because again, a good day today has nothing to do with tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you might have a bad day tomorrow. And I think it's the same in the business world, man. Life's hard. life is like the original 4-letter word, right? So
It is hard.
yeah. And we're all going to run into bumps down the road. And I think, again, athletics just teaches us, you get into a mindset that, hey, if I have a bad day today, I can do better tomorrow. I just need to come back and keep at it. And I've always joked, I've been in sales my whole life. If I wrote a sales book, it would be called Boringly Consistent, because that's me. I just kind of do my thing every day. I don't really take a lot of days off, but I'm also not this crazy up at 4:30, work till 10 at night guy. I'm just not. I never have been. But you'll always find me working, doing my job, whatever it is. And I think that's kind of athletics too, right? Because you can't go work out for 5 hours one day and then not work out at your sport for 2 weeks and then come back expecting. You're better to go work out for a half hour every single day.
Consistency.
And be consistent with it, right?
Yeah. It's funny you're talking about the successes and everybody fails. I was talking to a kid the other day who had missed a game-winning shot in a high school basketball game and was distraught, right? And was reminded him that LeBron has been with the Lakers now, right? For I don't even know how long he's been with them now, again, 4 or 5 years. And he's gotten, I think it's 39 opportunities to make the game-winning or game-tying shot since he's been with LA. He's made one of them during that period of time, right? Best player on the, I mean, I still watch him play. It's just remarkable. It's that consistency of showing up every single day, doing your job, and not letting those failures impact your day-to-day life is a critical component that can be learned from athletics.
Yeah, I called into a radio show one time, a long time ago, because they were talking about school funding, and one of the things that the radio host was saying was, and he admitted he hadn't played athletics, and he thought, hey, if we're going to take money out of schools, let's take it from the athletic programs, not the arts.
Yeah.
And I have never called a radio show before, but all of a sudden I'm like, no, this is not right. So I pick up the phone and call, and I got on, and I kind of went through this same talk. Hey, athletics is one of the best places to learn just life's lessons.
It's the best classroom for life on the planet.
Oh, it is. You've got to learn to work with other people. You've got to learn to take instruction. You've got to learn to be disciplined. And so anyway, he and I had a nice exchange, and I don't know if I changed his mind, but it's truly something I deeply believe in. I think athletics is just a phenomenal place, but you don't have to be in athletics either. You can be in the band, be in the arts, be in the plays at school or whatever. It's just, I think kids have to, again, we're talking about kids. I just think kids have to have a place where they can go and do something that they enjoy, that they want to work at and want to be good at, because that's what will create this consistency of activity. And for me, it was athletics, obviously.
Yeah. And consistency, because you're going to fail over and over and over again, as you pointed out, and then learning how to get back up and do it again. It's critical. Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate you coming on the show. We do this with everybody. There's a couple things. We'll start with the crystal ball. I used to have my players write me a paper about what they wanted for their lives 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, so that we could build a template for their lives to get them where they wanted to go, have a job that they wanted someday. I'm not going to make you write a paper, but we'll talk about this off air. Maybe I will have you write a paper, but what I'd love to hear is if you could build a crystal ball and go backwards in time to 14-year-old Larry Melton in the Dalles, Oregon, knowing everything that you were going to experience, all of the ups and downs, the goods, the bads. What advice would you give yourself sitting here today to 14-year-old Larry?
I would say, and I've told this to my daughters, ultimately, you are responsible for your own life and your own decisions. And even a 14-year-old hopefully can express those. My skill set really led me towards pitching, but pitching honestly wasn't my favorite part of baseball. I wanted to be an infielder. I wanted to play shortstop. I loved it. And I had the opportunity to get drafted out of high school as a shortstop, and I didn't know it. That's a whole nother part of my story that we can talk about another day. But what I think I would have told myself back then was be a little more assertive about what you really want to do. Listen to the advice of your coaches, your parents, whatever advisors you have in your life, because experience is a good teacher. But ultimately, you've got to make your own decisions and decide, where you want to go. What do you want to do? And I didn't do that as well as I should have. From the time I was about 15, 16, 17, and then into college especially, I all of a sudden you get pigeonholed into something that wasn't my favorite part of the game. And I may have made different choices had I been a little more assertive with that. So
I love it. And I think that's such a critical thing is it goes back to that this is the kid's life, right? Like it's
Right.
not the parent's life, it's not the coach's life. Find something that you love. I tell people this all the time. The biggest gift in life is finding something that you love, getting really good at it, and then getting somebody to pay you to do it. You never have to go to work a day in your life, right? For 19 years when I was coaching college basketball, I never felt like I was working one day in my life. It's work, but I didn't feel like it. And that advice of being true to yourself, find something that you love, find something that you enjoy, because it's your future, not all the people around you. They'll be impacted by your future, but it's your future.
Right. I agree. And would I have made it as far in baseball at a different position than as a pitcher? I don't know, but I do know this. I worked hard. I was good at pitching. I took it seriously, but I didn't have the same passion for that part of the sport as I did for other parts of the sport. So who knows? Who knows? And it's water under the bridge now. But again, back to your question, that's the advice I would try to get to kids now. Make your own decisions and just be firm about that and talking to people without being disrespectful
Sure.
and blowing off advice,
Yeah.
but just be a little more certain about what you want to do.
I love it. All right. The last thing, and this is really important. You got to tell me a dad joke.
Okay.
So I'm a big dad joke guy. I love them. I think they are one of the underutilized jokes on the planet, and we need more of them. So I'm trying to provide a platform for good dad jokes. What do you got for me?
Okay. Well, this one, give credit to my daughter, but this is a total dad joke. And she said it one day and made us all laugh. Why don't seagulls fly over the bay?
Why don't seagulls fly over the? I don't know.
Because then they'd be bagels. Oh, my daughter told me that when she was about 8, and we all just lost it.
That's so good.
Yeah, isn't that
They'd
good?
be bagels, and yeah,
Right.
it's a perfect dad joke. Well, Larry, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you having you come and take time out of your day, spend it with us, and really, really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, Larry. Hi, Anthony Leverett's here, Next Pitch Podcast. Just to wrap up conversation I just had with Larry Melton. Really enjoyed getting the chance to chat with him in the studio. He and I have been friends for a very long time, and a really, really, really interesting story. And I think, as we do after these shows, kind of recapping what he talked about. And the first thing I want to talk about is your kid's health. And he talked about the fact that he couldn't see. And I experienced this as a coach in 2011, maybe 2012, somewhere in there. I had a player, Evalani Rodriguez was her name, from Hawaii. Long story, but had all sorts of issues, both academically and with too many things to count, but a really, really, really tough upbringing, and got her to come to school and play for us. Had to sit out her first year due to some academic reasons, and then played her freshman year and had probably the most beautiful jump shot of any kid that I had ever coached, and could not make a three. Shot like 11% from the 3-point line her freshman year. And we were in a summer practice the summer before her sophomore year, and we're doing a time and score drill. And I look over at the clock, and Eva's sitting next to me, and she'd just taken a bad shot at the end of the drill. And I'm like, Eva, can you not see the time and score? We're working on time and score. We need to get a good shot, last shot. And she's squints and looks over at the scoreboard and couldn't see the scoreboard in the John M. Huntsman Center. And it is a massive scoreboard. So I call my trainer over and said, Deb, get her up to the Moran Eye Center. Go get her eyes checked. Well, long story short, Eva was legally blind. She could not see. And she gets her eyes fixed. and goes on the next year to either tie or break the NCAA record for three-pointers made consecutively. She made 7 in a row, 7 for 7 in one game, and started the next game making 6 straight. So made 13 straight threes. Ended up shooting almost 50% from three, led the country in three-point field goal percentage, and more importantly, had a much better academic experience and graduated and is now helping underserved children in the Salt Lake area. Just a remarkable story, but could not see. So to Larry's point earlier today, he went through the same thing. Couldn't see, had a very difficult time until he was in his teens, and his parents finally got him his eyes checked. Long way of saying, really, really important for kids in athletics, if they're experiencing any sort of problems with their eyes or anything else, health related, injury, complaining about stress related issues, take them to the doctor and see if you can't get them fixed. It may be nothing, but many times there is something big that is prohibiting them to having that best experience. So a little shout out to Eva and that story, my favorite story of all time. And then back to that, second thing that I want to talk, recap with Larry is, for parents, remember to be your kid's biggest fan. All they want to hear from you after games is, I love you and I love watching you play. And if you can change that car ride home dynamic to them not being, their relationship with you being tied to whether they won or whether they lost, whether they played well, they didn't play well, that it's just the sport, that you're there to support them. You're their fan. You love them. You love watching them compete, that they get that feeling from you. That dynamic between you and your child is going to be so much better. And I'm going to keep harping on this as long as I get a chance to talk on this show. I'm going to keep bringing this up, but kids they want to hear from you. I love you. I love watching them play. Be a big fan. Help them and give them the resources and the tools that they need, but support them whether they win, they lose, they play great, they play poorly. And then finally, I thought it was really great point that Larry made about the advice that he would give himself. Became a professional baseball player, became a professional pitcher, but it wasn't the position that he wanted to play. It was, he wanted to be a shortstop, and everybody else wanted him to be a pitcher. And the thing that he would go back and change is that he would have been more assertive about what he wanted. And for kids out there listening, and for coaches that are listening, that coach young people, do everything you can to find out what a kid wants. I've told people this over and over and over again. I had the best job in the world for 19 years, getting to coach college basketball. And not because of what I made from coaching, but because I got to get up every single day and do something that I loved. And then somebody paid me to do that. And if you can, as a young person or as someone who's mentoring a young person, help them find what it is that they love to do, pursue that path, find a degree that is going to match up with that future that they want for themselves, so that they feel fulfilled when they're grown up. They're not just waking up doing some mundane BS job that they have to do. They're doing something that they love to do. I think that is a gift that if we can give young people and help them find that, that's what mentoring and coaching young people is all about. Again, until next time, this is Anthony Levitz for the Next Pitch podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.